Captain Jake Morrison walked through the busy streets of New Kellara City. The alien buildings rose high into the purple sky. Strange sounds filled the air as different species talked and traded. Jake had been coming to this world for 3 years. Now, the Zentari people were good traders, and even better friends. His ship, the Liberty's Edge, sat in the spaceport nearby. It was not a big ship, but it was fast, and could carry enough goods to make good money. Jake had left the Earth Navy 5 years ago. Trading was safer than fighting wars, or so he thought. The Zentari looked like tall, thin humans, but with blue skin and 4 arms. They were peaceful people who loved art and music. Their world, Kepler 4 to be, was beautiful. Green forests covered most of the land. Clean rivers ran through their cities. The air smelled like flowers. Jake entered the Trade Center building. Inside, Prime Minister Veltar was waiting for him. The Zentari leader looked worried. His usual calm face showed fear. This was not normal. Captain Morrison, Veltar said, in perfect English. Thank you for coming so quickly. What's wrong? Jake asked. You sounded scared on the radio. Veltar led Jake to a private room. On the wall was a large screen showing space. Red dots moved across the star map. There were hundreds of them. The Vrak Empire has found us, Veltar said quietly. Their invasion fleet is coming here. Jake felt his stomach drop. Everyone in space knew about the Vrak. They were monsters who destroyed worlds and took prisoners as slaves. They had killed billions of people across the galaxy. How long do we have? Jake asked. 6 days, Veltar replied. Maybe 7. Jake looked at the screen again. The red dots were moving fast toward Kepler 4 to be. There were so many of them. The Zentari had only a small defense fleet. They were scientists and artists, not warriors. What about your allies? Jake asked. Can anyone help you? Veltar shook his head. We have no military allies. The other peaceful species are too far away, or too weak. The strong species do not care about us. Jake felt angry. Good people were going to die, and nobody cared. The Zentari had never hurt anyone. They only wanted to live in peace and create beautiful things. There might be one hope, Veltar said slowly. Your people, the humans. Jake was surprised. Humans? We don't have any treaties with you. Earth Command doesn't know you exist. But humans help others, Veltar said. We have heard the stories. When the Corvan pirates attacked the mining colony on Titan 7, human ships came to help. When the plague hit the research station on Wolf 359, human doctors saved everyone. Jake remembered those stories. Humans did have a habit of helping people in trouble. It was just their nature. But this was different. This was war against the most dangerous enemy in the galaxy. The Zentari Council has made a decision, Veltar continued. We will send a message to all human space. We will ask for help. What can you offer them? Jake asked. Humans don't fight for free. Everything, Veltar said simply. Our technology, our art, our music, our science. Everything we have created in 1,000 years. If humans save us, it all belongs to them. Jake was quiet for a moment. The Zent were offering their entire civilization as payment. It showed how desperate they were. I'll help you send the message, Jake said. My ship has a long-range transmitter. They walked quickly to the spaceport. Jake's crew was loading cargo when they arrived. His first officer, Lieutenant Sam Carter, saw their faces and knew something was wrong. Captain? Sam asked. Change of plans, Jake said. We're sending an emergency message to human space. Full power transmission. They worked quickly to set up the transmitter. Veltar stood in front of the camera. Behind him, pictures of Zentari's cities appeared on the screen. Beautiful buildings, peaceful families, children playing in parks. People of Earth and all human worlds, Veltar began. I am Prime Minister Veltar of the Zentari Republic. We call upon humanity for aid. In 6 days, the Vrak Empire will reach our world. They come to destroy us and take our people as slaves. The message continued. Veltar explained who the Zentari were and what they faced. He showed pictures of Vrak ships and the destroyed worlds they left behind. He offered everything his people had in exchange for help. We know humans have no reason to help us, Veltar said. We have no treaties or agreements, but we have heard that humans do not let innocent people die when they can help. If this is true, please come. Please save us. The message went out across human space. It would take hours to reach the nearest human worlds and days to reach Earth. Jake hoped someone would listen. On Earth, Admiral Lisa Parker was working late in her office at Terra Defense Command. She was tired after a long day of meetings. The phone rang. Admiral, her aide said, "We're getting an emergency transmission from the Outer Rim. You need to see this." The message from Veltar played on her screen. Parker watched carefully. She had never heard of the Zentari before, but the message was real. The fear in Veltar's voice was real. The threat was real. Parker called her staff. Within an hour, the top human military leaders were watching the message. They argued about what to do. Some said it was not their problem. Others said they could not spare the ships. "How many ships would we need?" asked General Pete Williams. "Against the Vrak." "Everything we have," replied Admiral Tony Harris. "Maybe more." Parker stood up. "Then that's what we'll send. Everything we have." The room went quiet. Everyone stared at her. Admiral General Williams said carefully, "We're talking about risking the entire human fleet for people we've never met." "I know exactly what we're talking about," Parker replied. "We're talking about saving a civilization from slavery and death. We're talking about doing what's right." She turned to her communications officer. "Send the message. All human ships. All human worlds. Maximum priority. We're going to war." The orders went out across human space. On hundreds of worlds, military bases came alive. Ships prepared for battle. Crews said goodbye to their families. Everyone knew this might be the biggest fight in human history. On Kepler 4 to be. Jake Morrison received a message on his personal communicator. It was from Admiral Parker herself. "Captain Morrison," the message said, "your transmission has been received. The human fleet is coming. Tell the Zentari to hold on. Help is on the way." Jake found Veltar in the government building. The Zentari leader was meeting with his generals, trying to plan a defense with their small fleet. "Veltar," Jake said, "I have news from Earth." He played Parker's message. The room fell silent. Then, Veltar smiled for the first time in days. "The humans are coming," he said softly. "They're really coming." Outside, the purple sun was setting over New Kalara City. In space, the Vrak fleet moved closer every hour. But now there was hope. The humans were coming to help, bringing the largest fleet they had ever assembled. The battle for Kepler 4 for 2B was about to begin. Admiral Lisa Parker stood on the bridge of the USS Defiant. Around her, officers worked at control panels. The big screen showed ships arriving from all over human space. She had never seen so many vessels in one place. "Report," Parker said to her aide, Commander Rick Stone. 212 ships have arrived, Admiral," Stone replied. "More coming every hour." The heavy cruiser New Houston just dropped out of hyperspace with Captain Ben Rodriguez commanding. Parker nodded. Rodriguez was a good officer. She had served with him during the border wars 10 years ago. He knew how to fight. "What about the Wolfpack squadron?" Parker asked. "Commander Amy Sullivan reports, ready for action," Stone said. "All 12 destroyers are fully armed and fueled." The Wolfpack was famous throughout the human fleet. Sullivan and her crews were the best at hit-and-run attacks. They would be very useful against the Vrak. A new ship appeared on the screen. It was massive, bigger than any other vessel in the fleet. The USS Freedom, a Dreadnought-class battleship. Only 3 ships like it existed in human space. Captain Danny White requests permission to come aboard, Stone reported. Tell him to come over immediately, Parker said. I want to talk to all senior commanders. 1 hour later, the main briefing room on the Defiant was full. Captains and commanders from across the human fleet sat around the big table. Parker looked at each face. These were the best officers humanity had to offer. Ladies and gentlemen, Parker began, you all know why we're here. The Zentari Republic has asked for our help. In 4 days, the Vrak Empire will attack their homeworld. We're going to stop them. Captain Rodriguez raised his hand. Admiral, what do we know about Vrak tactics? Parker pressed a button. The screen showed Vrak ships. They were dark and ugly, covered in weapons. The Vrak use mass attacks. Parker explained. They have 500 ships. All are heavily armed. They don't use fancy tactics. They just charge forward and try to destroy everything. Commander Sullivan leaned forward. 500 ships. We only have 212. 238 now, Stone corrected. More ships, arriving every hour. Captain White spoke up. Even if we get 300 ships, we're still outnumbered. The Vrak have been fighting for 100 years. They're experienced. Parker smiled. That's exactly why we're going to win. The Vrak think they know everything about space combat. They've never fought humans before. She pressed another button. The screen showed human ship designs. Our ships are faster than theirs, Parker continued. Our weapons are more accurate. Our crews are better trained. Most importantly, we can adapt. The Vrak always fight the same way. We don't. The briefing continued for 2 hours. Parker explained her plan. The human fleet would not fight like the Vrak expected. Instead of charging forward, they would use speed and clever tactics. After the meeting, Parker walked through the ship. In the hangar bay, mechanics worked on fighter planes. In the weapons room, technicians checked plasma cannons. Everyone was busy preparing for battle. She stopped to talk with Sergeant Mike Davis. He was loading quantum torpedoes into a launcher. How are the weapons? Sergeant Parker asked. Perfect condition, Admiral Davis replied. These new quantum torpedoes pack twice the punch of the old ones. The Vrak won't know what hit them. Parker nodded and continued her walk. In the medical bay, doctors prepared for wounded. In the engineering section, workers checked the shield, generators. Every person on every ship was getting ready. Meanwhile, more ships kept arriving. The carrier Lexington came with 50 fighter planes. The battleship Constitution brought its heavy guns. Small corvettes and big cruisers all answered the call. Captain Mary Johnson arrived on the cruiser Iron Will. She was known for her aggressive fighting style. Her ship had fought pirates and raiders across the galaxy. Lieutenant Tom Anderson commanded the small corvette Braveheart. His ship was tiny compared to the others, but Anderson and his crew were brave. They had volunteered to come even though their ship was old. On the New Houston, Captain Rodriguez talked with his crew. They sat in the ship's main meeting room. The faces around him were young and scared, but determined. I won't lie to you, Rodriguez said. This will be the biggest fight any of us have ever seen. The Vrak are dangerous enemies. Some of us might not come home. A young ensign raised her hand. Captain, why are we doing this? The Zentari aren't even human. Rodriguez was quiet for a moment. Because it's the right thing to do. The Zentari are good people who need help. If we don't help them, who will? If we let the Vrak destroy one innocent world, they'll destroy more. He stood up and looked at each crew member. Humans don't abandon people who need help. That's who we are. That's what makes us different from the Vrak. The crew nodded. They understood. This was about more than just one battle. It was about what humans believed in. On the USS Freedom, Captain White inspected his weapons. The Freedom carried the newest human technology. Plasma cannons that could punch through any armor. shield generators that could stop almost any attack, and something special that even White did not know about yet. Dr. Ellen Foster, the ship's science officer, was working on a secret project. In a locked room deep inside the Freedom, she made final adjustments to a new weapon. It was called a quantum disruptor cannon. Only 3 people in the fleet knew it existed. How much longer? White asked her. 6 more hours, Foster replied. The power coupling needs to be perfect, or the whole ship could explode. White trusted Foster. She was the smartest person he knew. If she said the weapon would work, it would work. Across the fleet, similar preparations continued. On every ship, crews checked weapons and shields. Pilots practiced attack runs in simulators. Marines cleaned their rifles and checked their armor. Commander Sullivan held a meeting with her destroyer captains. The Wolfpack squadron was planning their part of the battle. We'll hit them fast and hard, Sullivan explained. Get in, fire everything we have, then get out before they can respond. Keep them confused and angry. Her captains nodded. They had done this before against pirates and smugglers, but never against 500 enemy ships. Admiral Parker received regular reports about the Vrak fleet. They were still 3 days away from Kepler 44 to B. The human fleet had time to prepare, but not much time. She called Captain Jake Morrison on Kepler 44 to B. His face appeared on the screen. Behind him, she could see Zentari buildings. Captain Morrison, Parker said. How are our new allies? Scared but determined, Admiral Morrison replied. They're doing everything they can to help. Prime Minister Veltar has given us complete access to their defense systems. What about their ships? Parker asked. 37 vessels total, Morrison said. Most are science ships, not warships, but they're willing to fight. Parker nodded. Every ship would help, even small ones. We'll be there in 36 hours, Captain. Tell the Zentari to hold on. As more human ships arrived, the fleet grew stronger. But Parker knew numbers were not everything. The Vrak had more ships and bigger guns. The battle would be won by tactics and courage, not just firepower. She looked out at the assembled fleet. Ships from Earth, Mars, Alpha Centauri, and dozens of other human worlds. Rich worlds and poor worlds. Military vessels and converted civilian ships. All here for the same reason. Commander Stone approached her. Admiral, we just received word from Earth Command. They're sending the 7th Fleet as backup. How long until they arrive? Parker asked. 6 days, minimum, Stone replied. Parker shook her head. The battle will be over by then. We go with what we have. She turned to address the fleet over the communication system. On every ship, crews stopped what they were doing to listen. This is Admiral Parker to all vessels, she began. In 36 hours. We will arrive at Kepler 4 for to be. We will face an enemy that has destroyed 17 civilizations. They think they will destroy one more. Her voice grew stronger. They're wrong. Today, the galaxy learns what happens when you threaten innocent people while humans are nearby. Today, we show the Vrak that their reign of terror is ending. She paused. Check your weapons. Check your shields. Say goodbye to your families. Tomorrow, we fight for people we've never met, because it's the right thing to do. That's what makes us human. The communication ended. Across the fleet, crews cheered. They were ready for battle. The largest human fleet in history was assembled. 250 ships, carrying 50,000 sailors, soldiers, and pilots. They were heading into the biggest fight of their lives. But they were not afraid. They were humans, and humans did not abandon people who needed help. Supreme War Chief Greystock stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dark Conqueror. The massive ship was black as space itself. Weapons covered every surface. Inside, 10,000 Vrak warriors waited for battle. Greystock was huge, even for a Vrak. His skin was gray and covered in scars from 100 battles. His forearms each ended in sharp claws. His eyes glowed red in the darkness of the bridge. "Report," Greystock growled to his second-in-command, War Master Krevner. "The invasion fleet moves as planned." Supreme War Chief Krevner replied, 500 ships, 2 million warriors. We will reach the target world in 2 days. Greystock smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Another world would fall to the Vrak Empire. Another species would become slaves. It was always the same. The Vrak had been conquering for over a century. They were born warriors who lived only for battle. Their homeworld was a dark, cold place where only the strong survived. From childhood, every Vrak learned to fight, to kill, to take what they wanted. "What do we know about these Zentari?" Greystock asked. "Weak," Krevner said with disgust. "They are scientists and artists. Their military is small and poorly trained. They have only 37 ships." Greystock laughed. 37 ships against 500. This will be over quickly. He turned to look at the star map. Red dots showed his fleet moving toward Kepler 4 for 2b. Behind them, transport ships waited to collect slaves. Factory ships prepared to strip the planet of all useful materials. "Their cities look beautiful in the spy reports," Krevner continued. "Many slaves to be taken. Much wealth to be captured." The Vrak way of war was simple and brutal. First, they destroyed all enemy ships. Then they landed on the planet and rounded up survivors. The strong became workers in Vrak factories. The weak were killed. Children were raised as Vrak warriors. In 17 conquered worlds, billions of people now served the Vrak Empire. They worked in dark mines and ugly factories. They had no freedom, no hope, no future, except slavery. Greystock had personally led 12 of those conquests. He was the most successful war chief in Vrak history. No enemy had ever defeated him. No world had ever escaped his grasp. "Have there been any changes to the enemy forces?" Greystock asked. Krevner checked his reports. "Our spies report some activity. A few unknown ships have arrived at the target world. Nothing important. Unknown ships. Small trading vessels. Maybe some species. Trying to help the Zentari. It doesn't matter. We will destroy them all." Greystock nodded. Sometimes weak species tried to help each other. It never worked. The strong always defeated the weak. That was the law of the universe. On the flagship's lower decks, Vrak warriors prepared their weapons. Plasma rifles hung on their backs. Energy swords hung at their sides. They wore black armor that could stop most weapons. War Captain Dexon trained with his soldiers. They practiced boarding enemy ships and capturing prisoners. The Vrak preferred to take enemies alive when possible. Live slaves were more valuable than dead bodies. "Remember," Dexon told his warriors, "we want workers, not corpses. Kill only those who fight too hard. The rest become our property." The warriors growled their agreement. They looked forward to the battle. Vrak only felt truly alive when they were fighting and conquering. In the fleet's command center, Vrak generals studied reports about Kepler 4 for 2b. The planet was rich in metals and had plenty of water. The Zentari cities were well built and would make good Vrak bases. The population was large enough to provide many slaves. "What about their technology?" asked General Vexter. "Advanced in some areas," replied Intelligence Chief Morgul. "Their computers and art are impressive. Their weapons are primitive. They have no experience with real war." The Vrak had studied the Zentari for months. They knew everything about their society, their military, their weaknesses. The conquest would be easy, but as the fleet moved through space, a new report arrived. The spy ship Silent Death had been watching Kepler 4 for 2b. Its captain, Stealth Master Zakrin, sent an urgent message. "Supreme War Chief," the message began. "New ships have arrived at the target world. Many ships. They are not Zentari designs." Grace read the report carefully. The spy described ships that looked different from anything in their databases. sleek, fast vessels with unknown weapons. The markings, said Humans? Greystock said the word slowly. I have never heard of this species. Krevner checked the computer files. No records of them in our databases. They must be a minor species. Probably traders or explorers. How many ships? Greystock asked. The spy reports over 200. Krevner read. But they are smaller than our vessels. Still not a real threat. Greystock was not worried. 200 ships against 500 was still easy odds. Besides, these humans had never fought the Vrak before. They would learn quickly how hopeless resistance was. The Vrak fleet continued toward Kepler-4 for 2B. On every ship, warriors sharpened their weapons and practiced combat drills. Transport ships prepared holding cells for prisoners. Factory ships got ready to strip the planet bare. Greystock called a meeting of his war captains. 20 of the most dangerous Vrak commanders gathered in the flagship's war room. The walls were covered with pictures of conquered worlds and defeated enemies. We face a small complication, Greystock announced. Another species has sent ships to help the Zentari. They call themselves humans. The war captains looked at each other. Some laughed. Some growled with excitement. A few more enemies to destroy made the battle more interesting. How shall we deal with them? Supreme War Chief asked War Captain Brexel. The same way we deal with all enemies, Greystock replied. We destroy their ships and take their crews as slaves. I want to learn more about these humans, where they come from, how many worlds they control. War Captain Nexan spoke up. Perhaps they will surrender when they see our fleet. Most species run when they face the Vrak Empire. Perhaps Greystock agreed. But if they choose to fight, we will show them why the Vrak rule this part of the galaxy. The meeting continued as the commanders planned their attack. They would use their standard tactics. The massive Vrak fleet would advance in a straight line, weapons firing. Any ship that tried to resist would be destroyed. Any ship that surrendered would be captured. It had worked against the Corelli Republic. It had worked against the Thalen Federation. It had worked against 15 other species. It would work against the Zentari and their human allies. On the spy ship, Silent Death, Stealth Master Zakrin watched the human fleet through his long-range sensors. The ships moved in formation around Kepler-4 for Tabi. They seemed to be preparing for battle. Interesting, Zakrin said to his crew. These humans are not running away. They plan to fight. He sent another report to Greystock. The human ships carried powerful weapons. Their engines were very fast. Their formation showed military training. Perhaps these humans have some skill, Zakrin reported. But skill alone cannot defeat the Vrak Empire. The spy ship stayed hidden in space, watching and reporting. Soon, Greystock would have all the information he needed to crush this new enemy. Back on the flagship, Greystock read the spy reports with interest. These humans seemed different from other species the Vrak had conquered. They did not run when faced with impossible odds. They prepared to fight, even though they were outnumbered. Brave, but stupid, Krevner said. Courage cannot stop plasma cannons. True, Greystock replied. But I want to capture some of these humans alive. I want to study them. Any species willing to fight the Vrak Empire must have something special about them. He turned to look at the star map again. Red dots showed his fleet getting closer to Kepler-4 for Tabi. Blue dots showed the human ships waiting for them. Soon, the two forces would meet in battle. Greystock had fought many enemies in his long career. He had defeated brave warriors and clever tacticians. He had crushed large fleets and destroyed mighty fortresses. This battle would be no different. The Vrak fleet was a weapon of destruction that had never failed. 500 ships carrying weapons that could crack planets. 2 million warriors who knew only how to fight and conquer, led by commanders who had never lost a battle. Against them stood a few hundred human ships defending a world they had never seen before. People fighting for strangers they barely knew. It seemed like madness to Grastok, but that was the weakness of other species. They cared about things that did not matter. They helped people who could not help them in return. They fought battles they could not win for reasons that made no sense. The Vrak were different. They fought only for themselves. They took what they wanted and destroyed what they could not use. It made them strong while other species stayed weak. In one day, the two fleets would meet. The battle for Kepler for 4-B would begin. Greystock was certain of victory. How could a few human ships stop the greatest war machine in the galaxy? He would soon find out just how wrong he was. The human fleet waited in space around Kepler 4 for 2B. Admiral Parker stood on the bridge of the USS Defiant, watching the sensor screens. Red dots appeared at the edge of the system. The Vrak invasion fleet had arrived. "Contact," reported Lieutenant Amy Brooks from the sensor station. 512 enemy ships dropping out of hyperspace. Parker felt her heart beat faster. She had seen the reports, but seeing the actual enemy fleet was different. The Vrak ships were massive and dark. They moved in perfect formation like a wall of death. "All ships, battle stations," Parker ordered. "Shields up, weapons powered." Across the human fleet, crews rushed to their positions. On the New Houston, Captain Rodriguez watched his weapons officer charge the plasma cannons. On the Iron Will, Captain Johnson made sure her shields were at full power. The USS Freedom moved to the center of the formation. Captain White stood in his command center, watching Dr. Foster make final checks on the secret weapon. The quantum disruptor cannon was ready. "Distance to enemy fleet?" Parker asked. 2 million kilometers in closing, Brooks replied. "They're moving in standard Vrak formation. No attempt at tactics or clever moves." Parker smiled grimly. That was exactly what she had hoped for. The Vrak always fought the same way. Today, that would be their weakness, on the Vrak flagship. Supreme War Chief Greystock studied the human fleet through his sensors. The ships were smaller than he expected, but they looked fast and well armed. "Interesting formation," he said to War Master Krevner. "They're not running away. Should we offer them a chance to surrender?" Krevner asked. Greystock considered this. Usually, the Vrak demanded surrender before attacking. It saved ships and gave them more slaves. "Open communication," Greystock ordered. On the Defiant, the communication officer reported an incoming message from the enemy fleet. Parker nodded. "Put them on screen." Greystock's ugly face appeared on the main display. His red eyes glowed with hate. His sharp teeth showed when he spoke. "I am Supreme War Chief Greystock of the Vrak Empire," he announced. "You will surrender immediately or be destroyed. Your ships will be taken. Your crews will become slaves. This is your only warning." Parker stepped forward so Greystock could see her clearly. "I am Admiral Lisa Parker of the Human Defense Force. We reject your terms. Leave this system now or face the consequences." Greystock laughed, a horrible sound that echoed through both fleets. "Foolish human. You have 200 ships. I have 500. Your destruction is certain." "Then come and try," Parker replied calmly. "We're waiting." The communication ended. Greystock turned to his commanders with amusement. "The humans have spirit. Too bad they will all be dead soon." He gave the order to attack. The massive Vrak fleet began moving forward. Weapons powered up, shields activated. 500 ships prepared to destroy everything in their path. Parker watched the enemy advance. They moved exactly as she expected. No tricks, no clever tactics. Just raw power, moving in a straight line. "All ships, execute Formation Alpha," Parker ordered. The human fleet suddenly split apart. Fast destroyers moved to the flanks. Cruisers spread out in a wide line. The big battleships fell back to provide covering fire. Commander Sullivan led the Wolfpack destroyers in a wide circle around the enemy fleet. Her 12 ships moved like hunting wolves, fast and deadly. "Remember the plan," Sullivan told her captains. "Hit their rear ships first. Make them turn around and chase us." The Vrak fleet continued forward. They ignored the destroyers moving around them. Greystock wanted to destroy the main human force first. But as the fleets got closer, Parker gave another order. "All ships, execute attack pattern Delta." The human cruisers suddenly accelerated. Instead of meeting the Vrak head-on, they curved to the side. Their weapons fired at the edge of the enemy formation. Plasma bolts streaked through space. The first Vrak ships to be hit staggered under the attack. Their shields flared and sparked. 2 smaller vessels exploded. "What are they doing?" Krevner asked, confused. Greystock frowned. This was not how battles usually went. Enemies were supposed to charge forward and fight ship to ship. These humans were dancing around like insects. The Wolfpack destroyers struck next. They came from behind the Vrak fleet and fired everything they had. Quantum torpedoes slammed into the rear ships. 3 more Vrak vessels erupted in flames, turned the fleet around. Greystock roared, "Destroy those small ships." But when part of the Vrak fleet turned to chase the destroyers, the human cruisers attacked again. They hit the Vrak ships that had turned away from the main formation. Captain Rodriguez's new Houston led the attack. His plasma cannons fired continuously. The Vrak ship Bone Crusher took hit after hit until its shields failed and its hull cracked open. "Direct hit," shouted Rodriguez's weapons officer, Lieutenant Gary Phillips. Enemy destroyer destroyed. The battle became a deadly dance. The humans never stayed in one place long enough for the Vrak to focus their fire. They hit and ran, struck and disappeared. Always moving, Captain Johnson's Iron Will found itself surrounded by 5 Vrak ships. The enemy vessels closed in, firing everything they had. Johnson's shields took a terrible beating. Shields down to 30%. Her engineer, Chief Petty Officer Luke Carter, reported. "Evasive maneuvers," Johnson ordered. "Give me everything the engines have." The Iron Will twisted and turned through space. Johnson was an expert pilot, as well as a ship captain. She flew her cruiser like a fighter plane, dodging and weaving between enemy shots, but the Vrak ships were too close. Plasma bolts hit the Iron Will's hull. Explosions rocked the ship. Smoke filled the corridors. "Hull breach on deck 7, Carter reported. "We're losing atmosphere." Just when it seemed hopeless, the little corvette Braveheart appeared. Lieutenant Tom Anderson had brought his tiny ship to help. The Braveheart was no match for a Vrak cruiser, but Anderson attacked anyway. His ship's small guns blazed at the nearest enemy vessel. The Vrak ship Deathbringer turned to swat away this annoying pest. For a few seconds, the Iron Will was free. Johnson used those seconds perfectly. Her ship's main guns fired at point-blank range into the Deathbringer's side. The Vrak ship exploded in a ball of fire that lit up space, but the victory came at a cost. The Braveheart had put itself between the Iron Will and 4 enemy ships. Anderson's tiny vessel took hit after hit. "This is the Braveheart," Anderson radioed to Johnson. "Tell my wife I love her." The little corvette rammed into the nearest Vrak ship. Both vessels exploded together. Anderson and his crew of 23 died. But they had saved the Iron Will and its crew of 400. Across the battlefield, similar acts of heroism played out. Human ships fought with desperate courage against impossible odds. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but they refused to give up. The tide of battle began to turn when Captain White decided to reveal humanity's secret weapon. The USS Freedom moved to the center of the fighting. Enemy ships surrounded it on all sides. "Dr. Foster," White said calmly, "you may fire when ready." Foster pressed a series of buttons. Deep inside the Freedom, the quantum disruptor cannon powered up. Energy levels rose to dangerous levels. The entire ship hummed with barely contained power. "Firing," Foster announced. A beam of pure energy erupted from the Freedom's forward section. It was brighter than a star, more powerful than anything the galaxy had ever seen. The beam struck 3 Vrak dreadnoughts in perfect alignment. The first ship, Warhammer, simply vanished. The second ship, Bloodfang, broke in half. The third ship, Skullcrusher, lost all power and drifted helplessly. The entire battle stopped for a moment. Both fleets stared in shock at what had just happened. 3 of the most powerful Vrak ships had been destroyed by a single shot. Greystock felt fear for the first time in his life. "What kind of weapon was that?" he whispered. Krevner had no answer. Nothing in the Vrak arsenal could match what they had just seen, but the humans were not finished. Admiral Parker had saved her best move for last. While the Vrak fleet was confused and shocked, she gave the order for the final attack. "All ships, execute formation, Omega," Parker commanded. "Focus all fire on the enemy flagship." Every human ship turned toward the Dark Conqueror. Plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, and energy beams all fired at once. The space around Greystock's ship lit up like a deadly fireworks show. The Dark Conqueror's shields held for a few seconds. Then they flickered and failed. The massive ship took hit after hit. Explosions rocked it from bow to stern. "Shields down," Krevner reported. "Hull breaches on all decks. We're losing power." Greystock stared at the human fleet in disbelief. They had done the impossible. They had hurt the mightiest ship in the Vrak fleet. "All ships retreat," he ordered. "Emergency hyperspace jump." But many Vrak ships could not escape. The human attacks had damaged their engines. The Wolfpack destroyers hunted down the wounded vessels and finished them off. When the battle ended, over 400 Vrak ships had been destroyed or captured. Only 96 enemy vessels escaped with Greystock. The human fleet had lost 23 ships and 3,000 brave souls. It was a heavy price, but they had won an impossible victory. Admiral Parker looked at the wreckage floating in space. The Vrak Empire, undefeated for a century, had finally met their match. "This is Admiral Parker to all ships," she announced. "Well done. The Centauri homeworld is safe." On the planet below, Prime Minister Veltar watched the human victory with tears in his eyes. His people were free because strangers from across the galaxy had cared enough to help. The battle for Kepler-442b was over, but the war between humans and the Vrak Empire had just begun. 3 days after the battle, Admiral Parker stood in the main meeting hall of New Kalara City. Around her sat leaders from both the human fleet and the Centauri government. Prime Minister Veltar looked tired, but happy. "The final count is in," reported Commander Stone. "We destroyed 416 Vrak ships, captured 12 more with their crews. Only 96 enemy vessels escaped." Parker nodded. It was the greatest defeat the Vrak Empire had suffered in over a century, but the cost had been high. "For humans, too, our losses?" she asked quietly. 23 ships destroyed, 47 ships damaged, 3,214 crew members killed, 1,800 wounded. The room fell silent. Everyone thought about the brave people who had died to save strangers. Lieutenant Anderson and the crew of the Braveheart, the Marines who died boarding enemy ships, the pilots who flew their fighters into certain death to protect larger vessels. "Captain," Rodriguez stood up. "Admiral, I want to say something about our losses." Parker nodded for him to continue. "Those people died as heroes," Rodriguez said. "They died protecting innocent people they had never met. They died because it was the right thing to do. Their sacrifice means something." Captain Johnson spoke next. "The Vrak have enslaved billions of people across 17 worlds. Today, we showed the galaxy that someone will fight back. We showed them that the Vrak can be beaten." Dr. Foster had been quiet during the meeting. Now she raised her hand. "The quantum disruptor cannon worked perfectly, but we can build better ones. bigger ones. The Vrak will never again have such a weapon advantage. Veltar listened to the humans with wonder. Even after losing so many friends, they were already planning to help more people. They talked about building weapons, not to conquer, but to defend. Admiral Parker, Veltar said, "My people owe you everything. Our children will grow up free because of what you did. How can we ever repay this debt?" Parker smiled. "You already have. You asked for help when you needed it. You trusted strangers to do the right thing. That's payment enough." But Veltar shook his head. "No, it is not enough. The Zentari Council has made a decision." He stood up and activated a large screen. It showed a star map of the local area. Several systems were marked with special symbols. "We formally request to join the Human Alliance," Veltar announced. "We offer our technology, our knowledge, our ships, and our lives in service to the cause of freedom." The human officers looked surprised. There was no human alliance yet. It was just an idea that some people talked about. Admiral Parker thought carefully. "Prime Minister, we appreciate your offer, but humans don't seek to rule other species. We believe in freedom for everyone." "Exactly," Veltar replied. "That is why we want to join you. Not as subjects, but as equals, as partners in defending innocent people." Captain White leaned forward. "What kind of alliance are you thinking? About Veltar?" Pressed a button. The star map showed new information. Trade routes, communication networks, shared military bases. "A true partnership," Veltar explained. "Humans provide military protection. Zentari provide scientific research and medical support. Together, we help other species who need assistance." The idea excited many of the human officers. For too long, good people had suffered while evil species like the Vrak grew stronger. An alliance could change that. "There's something else," Veltar continued. "Our long-range sensors have detected distress signals from other worlds. The core system, the Beta Reticuli colonies, the mining stations near Wolf 359, all calling for help against the Vrak." Parker looked at the star map. Red dots showed Vrak forces attacking innocent people across dozens of systems. The battle for Kepler-44 to be had been just the beginning. "The Vrak won't give up," she said. "They'll be back with more ships and better weapons." "Then we need to be ready," replied Captain Rodriguez. "We need allies, bases, and ships of our own." Over. The next week, representatives from across human space arrived at Kepler-44 to be the President of Earth, the Colonial Council from Mars, governors from dozens of human worlds. They came to see what their military had accomplished. The negotiations took place in the Zentari Council chambers. It was a beautiful room with windows looking out over the purple sky. Art covered the walls, showing the peaceful history of the Zentari people. "The question before us," said President Kate Sullivan of Earth, "is whether humanity wants to become the galaxy's police force." General Pete Williams disagreed. "We're not talking about being police. We're talking about helping people who can't help themselves." Senator Bob Franklin from Alpha Centauri worried about the cost. "We just spent billions of credits and lost thousands of lives. How many more battles like this can we afford?" Captain Morrison spoke up from the back of the room. "With respect, Senator, how can we afford not to fight? The Vrak will keep conquering until someone stops them. If not us, then who?" The debate continued for hours. Some people wanted to go home and forget about the galaxy's problems. Others wanted to build the biggest military force possible and attack the Vrak everywhere. Admiral Parker listened carefully to all arguments. Finally, she stood up to speak. "I've been a soldier for 20 years, she began. "I've seen what happens when good people do nothing. Evil grows stronger, and innocent people suffer." She pointed to the star map on the wall. "The Vrak Empire controls dozens of systems and billions of slaves. They're not going to stop conquering because we beat them. Once they'll build more ships and attack more worlds." Parker walked to the window and looked out at the Zentari city. But something changed here 3 days ago. For the first time in a century, someone fought the Vrak and won. Other species heard about our victory. They're starting to hope again. She turned back to the room. We can choose to go home and wait for the Vrak to get stronger. Or we can choose to build something better. An alliance of free species who protect each other. President Sullivan asked the key question. What, exactly, are you proposing, Admiral? Parker activated the display screen. It showed a new star map with human and Zentari systems connected by green lines. The Freedom Alliance, Parker announced. A partnership between all species who believe in liberty and justice. We share technology, resources, and military protection. We help any world that asks for aid against oppression. The room buzzed with conversation. It was a bold idea, maybe too bold. Veltar stood up. The Zentari Republic pledges full support to this alliance. We offer our shipyards to build new vessels, our scientists to develop better weapons, our people to serve alongside humans in defense of freedom. One by one, other voices joined in. The mining colonies needed protection from pirates. The research stations wanted to share their discoveries. The frontier worlds offered to serve as early warning posts. By the end of the week, the Freedom Alliance was born. 12 species signed the charter, with more asking to join every day. The headquarters would be built on Kepler 44 to be a symbol of what could be accomplished when people worked together. Admiral Parker was chosen as the first Supreme Commander of Alliance forces. Her first order was to begin construction of the Kepler Defense Station, a massive base that could protect the entire system. Captain Rodriguez was promoted to Admiral and given command of the Second Fleet. His job was to hunt down remaining forces and rescue their slaves. Commander Sullivan became Admiral of the Fast Attack Division. Her ships would respond quickly to any distress calls. Across Alliance space, Dr. Foster was put in charge of weapons development. She began designing new quantum disruptor cannons that could be mounted on smaller ships. The Alliance grew quickly. Engineers from a dozen worlds worked together to build better starships. Scientists shared their knowledge to develop new technologies. Soldiers trained together to fight as one force. 6 months later, the first major test came. The Vrak Empire, rebuilt and angry, attacked the mining world of New Pittsburgh with 200 ships. But this time, they faced a united response. The Freedom Alliance fleet met them with 300 vessels from 8 different species, human tactics, Zentari shields, Corvin weapons, and beta reticuli sensors combined into an unstoppable force. The second battle was shorter than the first. The Vrak fleet was destroyed completely. Supreme War Chief Greystock was captured alive and put on trial for crimes against the galaxy. News of the victory spread across known space. More species asked to join the Freedom Alliance. The Vrak Empire began to collapse as their slave worlds rebelled. 1 year after the battle for Kepler 44, to be Admiral Parker stood on the observation deck of the new Kepler Defense Station. Through the big windows, she could see ships from dozens of worlds working together. Captain Morrison joined her at the window. His merchant ship had become the first vessel in the Alliance Trade Corps, carrying supplies to worlds, rebuilding after Vrak occupation. "Do you think we did the right thing?" Morrison asked. Parker watched a Zentari science ship dock next to a human cruiser. Aliens and humans worked side by side, preparing for another rescue mission. "A year ago, the Zentari were facing extinction," she replied. "Today, they're helping to free other enslaved worlds. A year ago, the Vrak seemed unstoppable. Today, their empire is crumbling." She pointed to the ships outside. 18 species working together for freedom. Hundreds of worlds protected from conquest. Millions of slaves set free. "Yes, I think we did the right thing." The communication system activated. A distress signal from the far edge of known space. Another world under attack. Another species calling for help. "This is Admiral Parker to all Alliance ships," she announced. "We have a priority rescue mission. Prepare for immediate departure." Across the station, crews rushed to their ships. Human vessels, Zentari cruisers, Corvan destroyers, and fighters from a dozen other worlds, all united under the banner of freedom. As the fleet departed Kepler 44-B, Admiral Parker smiled. The galaxy was a big place full of dangers, but it was also full of good people, willing to help each other, and whenever civilizations called for aid, the Freedom Alliance would answer. Human warships and their allies would arrive in force, bringing hope to the hopeless and freedom to the oppressed. The age of the Vrak Empire was ending. The age of the Freedom Alliance had begun.